But I think it's also important to let people know that whatever works for you works for you.
Welcome to the Mega Team Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Tiller. In each episode, we have dynamic conversations with industry powerhouses, mega team leaders, coaches, and other thought leaders who are shaping the future of real estate teams. This podcast is brought to you by megateammentor.com, where you can get a free, detailed assessment of your real estate team's health, including a free customized scorecard that will quickly and objectively diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of your real estate team business. Now, let's get started on the journey of growth, impact, and legacy building with today's episode. Successful real estate mega team leaders and the people who shape them. I'm your host, Jon Tiller, and today we've got a guest who was at the top of my list to have on the show when we started the podcast. This is my friend, coach, and mentor, Jon Cheplak, the number one coach to team leaders and brokers in the real estate industry, which he would probably never tell you that. But Jon, thanks for being here, man.
It's really a privilege. Thank you.
Well, listen, you have such a rich story, and we've got a limited amount of time. Would you do me a favor, though? And there's so many key parts of your story that have made you into the man you are, have made you into the professional you are, and the coach that you are. Would you share just some key parts of that journey with us? I think the first time we met was about 6 years ago. I've heard different versions and kind of watched you as you've come. But if you would share some of that with us, that'd be great.
Well, your timing, and thank you for having me here. It's really a privilege. And I'd say this, and I hope I contribute to those of you that are watching this or listening to it. That's the number one thing. I think if you look at a theme throughout my career, which I had to learn, but the timing is beautiful. And there's a second piece as I share the story. I hope people hear and grasp this too. Just yesterday, I was texting back and forth in audio messages with my coach, Dean Graciosi, as they were going into, Tony and Dean are doing a world summit. I think it starts today. And he was asking, Jon, I want to give the backstory. I want to share that so people can really, be inspired by what you can really do. So, really put it in a nutshell, and I'll go fast because I want people to hear it. And I hope you capture a lot of different things in there. I hope you find a place where you fit in the story. I know we don't want to sit here and tell a story. We want to get into strategies and tactics, but find a place that you fit in the story so you can grab a borrowed belief. With that said, I was a bouncer in a teen nightclub, janitor there, and I worked in a seafood warehouse. I had work ethic. I worked 110 hours a week at 21 years old. Mom said, listen, work half as hard and sell real estate. And so this crazy character, with respect, Mike Ferry, said, knock on doors. And I said, okay. And knocked doors, cold call, FSBO, expired. That's how I got leads. I love saying that to agents, by the way. That's another story. Anyways, and it built it up to selling 100 homes a year. But I also watched as a young father and husband, I had my struggles through life with getting it up and going. And I watched other people struggle. And so I volunteered to help agents within the office and got recognized for that, became a branch manager, and then evolved to running a real estate office, about 1,483 transactions closed in 1998. And then got headhunted to be a GM exec VP for a tri-state. I think we had about 5,000 agent company GM. Along the way, the only reason I got to go, sure, there's work ethic, but I had mentors. So maybe if a CEO hears this, or even a team leader who's leading other leaders hears this, I get to be here because of the generous knowledge and latitude that great leaders contributed to me instead of just saying, do this. They grew me as a human being along the way. And then in about 2000, decided that, hey, listen, I grew that large organization, did massive startup offices, et cetera. I really learned how to operate a big company. And so I just went out one day, and I want people to hear this too. I said, I'm going to be a coach. And so I booked banquet rooms in the hotels, would do a red eye to save money on hotels and stuff like that. Put 50 chairs in a room. I do a 2-hour recruiting seminar. And the only marketing tool, see, I'm 57. This is 20 plus years ago. The only marketing we had then was email or the phone. Social media, come on, good grief. If I would have had social media then, I'd be done by now. But here's the piece to hear in anything is that sometimes one person would show up, sometimes 3 people would show up, sometimes 5 people would show up. Jeremy Larson talks about even as recent as 7 or 8 years ago, he was at an event full of chairs, 6 people showed up, and he reminds me of this. You still showed up at 100%. So that's how my business evolved. And today I've got a really nice coaching business and then some other pieces that we do too. But along the way too, I mean, life happens. And so call it good choices, bad choices. I don't know. I think that God puts experiences in front of you to evolve through. I used to think things were bad, but now I know that everything's a classroom. And I think we all have different classrooms we sit in. I battled alcoholism from 21 to 41 years old, in and out of rehabilitation facilities. I could mask things with a great work ethic, but it would always implode. And then finally, 16 years ago, I got clean and sober and have stayed sober since then. And I think to kind of put a bow on it, what I would say is I had my resume built, and not that I've ever arrived. I mean, I spend multiple six figures a year in coaching today. Yet I'm coaching two CEOs of two of the largest organizations in the world that have teams under them. Okay. And that means I need to invest more in coaching every single day. But I think the most important thing is that today, as my business has evolved and grown, it's only grown through the contribution. And as Dean Graciosi shares, I always want to give attribution to people, is the only way you really truly grow your business is if you fall in love with the result of your client first. So today I've got the multiple businesses, coaches that work for me. And I think the neat thing is many team leaders here either know or, oh, wow, brings it forward to consciousness. The most rewarding thing today is now I'm bringing forward other people in our industry that want to do more as coaches, as business partners in an ISA company, as business partners in a lead portal company, and by no means to promote it, just sharing how it evolves. And so here I am today, very fortunate to work with, we've been able to work together before and impact lives and businesses. So there's the quick down and dirty. I guess that wasn't too quick, but anyways, there's always a series of misadventures in there I think people need to hear.
Like you said, there's so much to learn and so many parts of the story for each of us to connect into. One thing that in our time coaching, that I never got around to telling you, really because I didn't learn as much about your story with becoming sober for 16 years. And I'll just leave it at this. On behalf of others who had two alcoholic parents growing up, thank you for the model that you set. You have changed lives and changed families. You leveraging your influence help people do better. And one of the things that you and I are both very much on the same page with, and that you've done so well, we're around here, we talk about people who come to us with their real estate businesses kind of jacked up. And what we realize is it's not the business that's jacked up, it's their life that's jacked up. And if they can get their life priorities straight, then their business is going to get a whole lot better and the results are going to come a whole lot quicker. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy on that and your approach to that.
Sure. What's very interesting is many of the things that I was taught, and I think a lot of the learning that I was seeking early on was just to get the information and then just have it flow right through me and sound good. And that was in my immaturity. But it was, as many of us, I was building the plane as I was flying. And
right.
But what's really neat, John, and for everyone else that's listening here, is when you really start to bring this consciousness and you really connect your heart to your head and why are you really doing this, you start to hear again the things that were taught to you many years ago. And maybe you spoke them, but you weren't living them. And when you start living those, that's where, like I said, my resume was established. Not to say I don't need to keep learning, but my resume was established. And when I moved into coaching, until though I went in and made personal development 80% of my business success and tactics 20%. Leading with the heart and emotions first approach versus tactics, everything changed. And here's the one thing that I was told that then resonated when I started growing up, if you will. Everything going on privately will show up publicly. Everything going on privately will show up publicly. And when you can first own that for yourself and really look at, if I'm going to show up as my best version, how am I in all of my personal affairs? So there's that part of it. But then the second part then is if you can come with empathy as you lead other people. And instead of, you're not making the calls, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, the simple question of, Hey, John, can I have permission to go further? Sure. Is there anything else going on that I don't know about that could be creating? And so, it was that everything going on privately showing up publicly. And so I started drawing upon those things because I see glimpses of that, because knowing that also too, the old things that I heard is, I'm not a real estate business coach. I am a personal development company disguised as a business consulting coaching company. And so the old principles I heard, and I was forced into focusing on that first with the knowledge and the resume that I was forced into focusing in that. And then I watched. So I think sometimes I have an unfair advantage for the series of misadventures I went on in my life, because I was forced to do things that now you tell people and they go, oh, that seems kind of out there a little bit, but I know it. And the nice thing is, when you stay in this game long enough, it impacts people. So I think that's came from the goodness of what others had shared with me before that I listened to and I would speak, but it was like, wow, goodness in, goodness out, but it wasn't goodness in, goodness through me. Model it and demonstrate it, and you don't even have to say a thing. And so it was that discovery, that consciousness, as I started working on myself and seeing my business grow because of it. And then you start hearing people who, listen, I'm not here to get everyone to get sober. I wish I knew how to drink. I wish I could have a glass of wine. I wish I could. I can't. But, maybe if someone could drink less and feel better, maybe if someone could eat less and feel better. I'm not here to say everyone needs to be buffed or all that, but if they could be a little bit healthier. And so, it was those old principles. It was the journey I had to go on. And then number 3, then the proof of concept started happening. And it was interesting. I was unpacking that. Like I said, Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins have a world summit, I think today and tomorrow. And Dean was audio texting me and, hey, unpack your story. I want to unpack your story, share with people that you can go from zero to hero. Not his words, but just to make it simple. But it starts at who you are, what you do, what you stand for before the business.
I think you have partially answered this question, but what you just said triggered this question for me. Listen, you're 57 years old. I never hear you say, I actually hear you say young, which is awesome. And you're running faster and harder than most anyone in our industry. And so the question is, what's the goal? Why is it important to you to keep running this hard and this fast? Like you said, you built the resume. I love the way you say that. You built the resume before you started coaching. Why keep running this fast and this hard? And why is it important to you?
Sure. I respect everyone's beliefs. And so by no means, whether it's you're spiritual, you're not spiritual, you believe in God, you don't believe in God, I respect all things there. I have my path. And I remember, and I'd said the mercy prayer from 21 to 41, God, get me through this one. And I promise I'll be a good boy. Yeah. But it was interesting the last time, and it was the only rehab I didn't finish. I graduated from a 6-month program, a 1-year program, a 30-day program. And 18 months later, it was this pattern. This one, it was a 30-day program. I left the except. I didn't even complete it. And I remember this prayer. I said, get me through this. I promise until the day I fall over, I will spend my every living day impacting other people. But it's my responsibility to be transparent. I can do a budget, a pro forma projection with the best of them. I know the numbers inside and out. I do not do a personal business plan. I do not have a financial goal. None of those things. Now, can I go right now and give you real time where my dollars are? Sure, I can. I am asked when we get in a room with some great speakers or people in the room, how many are we going to capture? What's our addressable audience? How many will we convert? And I say as many as we're supposed to. I don't have really goals. I have things I want to experience. I guess I'm out at a farm. Yeah, I wanted to live on a farm, but I'm really backwards is what I am.
Well, but you clearly were given a mission. You made a promise to your creator that you're gonna live a life worth living if he got you through it. And it just goes to one more demonstration of what we always talk about, is that we buy on emotion and we justify on logic in our personal decisions the same way, right? And so there was this time in life, and I think for each of us, if we can find that moment, hopefully without all the pain, but the truth is that most people who we see at the top of the mountain were in a pretty deep valley way before they got there. And thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. Okay, so to tactics and strategies. What are the biggest, in the teams that you coach and the teams that you've run, what are the biggest needle movers today in team leadership?
Sure, there's two right now that are front and center, and I'll get really specific. Number of conversations that are documented of at least 2 minutes inside the CRM, and I'll drill down further. And number two is recruiting. Are there outliers out there? Sure. We've got some good friends, mutual friends that have these teams that are anomalies of 12 and 15 agents that sell 500, 600 homes. But it is, you must 2-minute conversations and recruiting every single day. Those two, you can, just to make a point, because people get caught in the weeds, John, you can screw up everything else, but you've got to obsess over those two right now. Period. In a discussion. Simple.
Wow. That's great leaders make the complex simple. And that's what you've done there. Let's talk a little bit about the preparing for the future. That's our job as leaders, is to prepare our teams for the future, to define reality where we are, number one, and then forecast the future and what to do about it. What do you forecast for teams over the next 12 months? There's a lot of shakeups happening in the industry, a lot of different things that are going down right now and that can impact our business. And so what do you forecast for the health of teams? Not so much as the market going up or down, but for how teams are affected in the next 12 to 24 months.
Well, I think we've been in and we will stay in is, I think life comes full circle. Let me say this first. And I say it, I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but my income is, I'm the last guy paid. You've got to pay agent commissions. You've got to pay staff. You've got to pay overhead. You've got to pay marketing. You've got to pay all these things. Then maybe I'll get paid by choice. Well, you take a look at our industry. So I just want to preface this for everyone. You look at our industry, well, units are down. So if units are down, that means commissions are down, means I should be generating less. And this isn't about how much money I make, but this is about a business trajectory. I just had a record month and I continue to stack record months. And here's the reason why. The reason why is people are too caught up in the future, and your future's in your past. If you take a look at life and business comes full circle. Right now, here's a couple things. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to play politician and redirect you instead of answering your question. But and that's what I did. So, because let me say this, and to help people out, I'll share a couple of things though of predictions. Is that number one, most people out there that are struggling right now, they automated themselves out of the relationship and they leveraged themselves out of the relationship, and now they're scrambling. It was very interesting. I had someone I was working with, a CEO who had about 120,000 agents, and a dear friend of mine was sitting at dinner with me, my client, telling me, "You're running your business wrong. You do too much." I'm like, well, okay. And then you go into, right, too much of a control freak to have my hands in it. But there was this interesting thing, and I listened to a client that's paying me is telling me I'm running my business wrong. Okay. And I'm respectful. And I just said, okay, great. Awesome. And I kept going. But here's the thing. I'm doing it wrong, but I keep growing. I'm doing it wrong and I keep expanding. And then, ready for this, I sat in a room with, again, and this isn't about a Dean show, but we all got our coaches, and you've got coaches and people you work with. And Dean, who is a $100 million annual income earner, he is Tony Robbins, and I want everyone to hear this. He is Tony Robbins, part-time helper CEO, if you don't know who Dean Graciosi is, okay? And we're on day one of a 2-day mastermind, and he opens up. He says, I started my morning like I usually do. I took a hike up to the top of Camelback. I wrote my social media post for the day. I edited my emails and checked my numbers and sent it. Now, let me ask y'all this. Could he buy the best copywriter on the planet for $500,000 a year? Yes, he could. Could he pay a VA $4 an hour to then post those across? Yes, he could. Here's what he said, and everyone's got to get a couple of things. Be careful not to leverage yourself out of the business with tools or automate yourself out of relationships because of tools. So I'm going to give you the cautions, okay? Number two, 60% of your schedule, this 7th level leadership evolution thing, yes, are they out there? Sure. You can look at a Dave Leniger, a Gary Keller, Tamir, those, they're in their startup phase, whatever. Listen, come on. And I'm not trying to hear to crap on anyone's dream. They're the 0.001%, but I will promise you, if you look at them, man, Dave Leniger was still in the trenches. Glenn Sanford's still in the trenches. I don't know Tamir, but he's in the trenches. The Sharons, the Leos, the Robert Palmers, all these guys. 60% of your daily schedule needs to be in your core competency, your number one needle mover. Forget the equation of I can pay someone less than have them do it. With that said, the future looks like, here's what the future looks like. The future is going to bring back that agent that did the work like you and I did, that was not entitled, shame on me, that was not the entitled work that you had to work for the work. What's going to happen is, in most cases, this is sweeping commentary, stay with me, not me. Good for you. You're great. But I get to speak to multiple CEOs of the large companies, the top teams in the world. So I'm just giving you the data from what I hear, okay? There's going to be a few that won't be this, but most will have a 50 to 60% turnover. And if you don't have a 50 to 60% turnover rate, you're in trouble. Let me tell you why. You can go look why. Go into your follow-up boss right now and tell me how many calls your agents are not making. Tell me how many agents won't even use the CRM, but they're making the calls. So then you're playing guessing game real estate. Here's my prediction. My prediction is the agent that shows up with the hard hat and the lunch pail and uses the simplicity of the CRM every day. I don't care what kind of technological advances are coming around you. After 30, here's the thing about being old, okay? And 30 years in this thing is, listen, I've heard every single, oh my God, they're going to take my MLS book away. The world's going to end. Oh my God, the internet. Oh, we're going out of business. Oh my God, Zillow, we're going out of business. Oh my God, the buyer agency, we're going out of business. Work works. So what I would say to you is, we're in a full circle moment. I don't care what's showing up outside of us. I'm watching it daily right now with leaders that are breaking records that will continue to be. You're going to need to, there's an evolution of the agent that is willing to do the work that's required. And I'm going to tell you this, good people that make good money aren't willing to do the work that's required, and it's going to continue to get required. It's not going to get easier if I'm to predict in the next 12 months. Maybe it does. End of first quarter, maybe second quarter. I don't know, but I don't see it getting easier. That's the number one thing that stands out. Stop trying to put a roof on a house that doesn't have a foundation and is framed. And let me tell you what I mean. The foundation is conversations, okay? The framing is texting and email, okay? Boom. The roof is all the other bells and whistles, and I need to AI it, and I need to this, and I need this autoresponder, and I need this. What's crazy? 90%, 99% of team leaders don't even know what the autoresponders say or the email drips say, and they've been sitting in there for years. But they're going to go stack something new on top of it. So here's what I would say is those that continue to be distracted, what I predict the future is going to be, those that continue to be distracted with the new tool and stacking stuff on and not holding to principle, okay, and recognizing there is going to be churn, unfortunately, because people are going to opt out of it, they're going to be in trouble. Those that will hold to the principles, keep it simple, and understand and be very honest and hold up their end of the bargain of holding agents accountable, being honest, and just using the simple things of building the house. You can put the roof on it after you've done the foundation, the frame, they're going to win. So there's my prediction of the future, and I don't know if it answered it for you, but I think it does.
Well, what it says is you started with, let's start with our past. And the thing that hasn't changed from the time that MLS books went away or going forward to the time that AI makes us what Ethan Butte calls on the Team OS podcast, cyber cyborgs. But his point there even is that it's a relationship business. And so the tools, you can stack them on the roof, but don't forget the foundation. That analogy is gold. It's just gold. And if our foundation is not solid, then what we build on the roof really doesn't matter. And that's the first time I've heard you. I don't know why, but it's the first time I've heard you say that. I use that analogy, and it's really solid. Also, like Ethan says, rewind if you didn't catch that.
Well, and watch this too. Let me expand on it. Okay. So if you will wake up every single day and build a house every day, literally in your driving sales foundation, how many conversations, email, text, then you can do everything else. Okay. Well, wake up every day in the recruiting silo. Who is owning and who is driving the activity and the resultant recruiting silo? Number one, it's conversations with agents. Okay. It's email and text. Then you can start doing events. Then you can start doing lead magnets. Then you can start doing free Zoom webinars. But stop skipping the steps and shooting past the targets that you need to hit first.
So good. I want to end around that on something that's related to that we talked about earlier, that we have a mutual friend, Jon Campbell, and John's been on the podcast. He's got the number 5 team in the country, according to Real Trends. And he does it with a ninja team rather than a continuous recruiting.
Ryan Young, you're friends with Ryan Young, right?
Yeah, right. Ryan Young. Yeah, sure. Same thing. Same thing.
Come on.
And so and John has this funny story about you inviting him to speak on stage and him saying, yeah, but don't say anything about that, that ninja team, which of course you were joking. But it is what you found in your experience. You preach KFR, consistency in recruiting. Why that? Why that versus the small ninja team for the person that says, yeah, I'm just not sure. I think I do want a ninja team. Small number of high producing agents. Right.
And we know each other, and we've gotten to know each other personally and have good personal conversations that matter the most. And in business, and the one thing I don't know, I'm better or worse, but I'm pretty piercing from messaging in our industry. And maybe I can be polarizing. And that is my one is, listen, everything can be argued both ways with validity. I'm going to tell you why. So here's the deal. When you've got 15 agents, and I've watched it happen almost every time. Say you've got 15 agents closing, let's go 12 agents closing 600 transactions, okay? And so we're talking about 50 transactions a piece. Now, you and I know this. There's a 25 in there and there's a 75 in there, and that's a problem. That's scary. We know not all 50 across the board. Your exposure is like nothing else. You could lose 15% of your revenues. And here's the challenge. If you lose one of them, I don't know what the percentage is, so I don't want to throw a number out there, but it's pretty likely. You've been a recruiter, and anyone listening, you guys know this. You always think if you get one good one, it sends a message in the organization, maybe someone else will follow. So does it happen 25% of the time? Your risk of having at least 10% of your business walk out the door, and let me say 15%, because typically who leaves the ninja team is the one who's crushing it, doing 70, 80 transactions. It's not the 30, because that 30 transaction one's seeing the person do 50, 60, 70. So they see runway still in the organization. So you start looking at that. My number one thing, you have 15% of your top line gross risking walking out the door tomorrow. That's why. The other issue that can happen too is the risk of growth. And again, there's anomalies out there. The risk of growth. The risk of growth could be your 70 transactioner last year did 70 transactions. It's called the risk of growth is personal situations and circumstances. That person comes in and you're like, okay, we're going to do 20% more. We did 500 transactions. We're doing 600 more. We're just going to lock 20% more because I know you got it. Okay. Well, your 70 transactioner comes in and says, hey, listen, John, man, my wife and I have made more money than we ever could have imagined. My wife wants to spend more time with me. I'm going to back it down to about 50 transactions a year. Hey, John, my mom's really sick and I got to take some time with my mom. Hey, John, I'm going through a relationship situation in my life and I've got to coast. I mean, it is so sensitive to both life and business. Whereas when with the recruiting game, and I ran an operation with thousands of agents, I coach operations with thousands of agents. I'm not smart. I've done it long enough that I pay attention to the numbers. It makes you smart. So you get that. So you play a simple game and not to treat people like cattle. Okay, great. So typical attrition for something large, like right now we're in a wonky attrition time because of the changes, but typically, historically, you'd see a 30% attrition. Great. I want 20% growth. Great. I've got to recruit 50% of my agent population. And since 1995, yep, that just told you how old I am, folks. My first year in branch management, 29 years ago, I figured that one out quick. Why'd they leave me? I'm doing budgets, projections, performance. And in that first year to 18 months, I figured that one out quick. And so really, and this can sound cold, hard, and personal, and people can argue it. And when they want to argue it with me, yes, there's outliers. I'll say, fine, show me your roster, show me your P&L the last 24 months. And they go, whoa, your job is to out-recruit your attrition. You can't make someone productive. You can't predict that they're going to stay with you forever. The average time span an agent we have found stays on a team is 3.5 years. And that includes accounting the person that came in 30 days and said, you told me I had to call this much. I'm not going to. Hey, no problem. So those are the cold, hard, raw facts, but there's always an outlier. So that's why I promote it. This will put a bow on this piece for everyone. Probably every team leader here was a good listing agent. Most of them were. Some still are. When you had one listing and they were overpriced and you weren't prospecting and you didn't have a pipeline, how much power did you have going to that seller for a price reduction? Okay, good. So now you've got, a couple agents, right? You got a couple agents and they don't want to make the calls and they don't want to use the CRM and you're not prospecting for more agents. Okay. And you have a pipeline of agents coming in. Oh, now who runs? The patient runs the asylum. The seller owns you. Let me tell you something. What do top listing agents do? And I know you top listing agents are listening to this. You go out there and listen. And I bring it intense, but here's where you're going. There's boundaries you're not going outside of. And you don't have to, because guess what you do? You prospect, you do lead follow-up, and you market appropriately. And you're not worried. You're not going to be a hostage. That's why.
Couldn't have said it better. That's amazing. It's high risk is really the sum total of all that. It's just high risk. There are outliers, but it's a high risk model. That makes a lot of sense.
And many of them over time, John, it's funny. They've called me and go, hey, Chep, and this isn't it. Yeah, John, can talk to you. You were right. It just took a while. Hey, no problem. It's cool.
Well, that's it. When they lose that first one, sometimes it's a few years in. Yeah. And we all, for those of us who ever tried that, present company included, we know the names of the people who destroyed our business that I should have been happy for to grow, whether it was backing down and spending more time in life than spending in business, or it was moving on to the next thing. Sometimes it is just time to move on, and you're not meant to work together forever. And it's my fault as the business owner if that destroys my business, not theirs.
Very good.
Awesome. So we talk a lot about impact and legacy, and I want to start to wrap up here asking you some questions about that. You have this amazing new family dynamic with grandchildren, a new wife, and a farm. We talked about joining the Kubota Club before we came on today. Tell me about how you balance or integrate what's valuable in your business with what's priceless in your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good. It is. I mean, my number one purpose in my business, and I think everyone should have an MVP. MVP is you. How do you become the MVP? Mission, values, principles. So my mission in business and purpose in it is serve, lead, inspire people who want to have a positive life experience as a result of the real estate business that they're building and they're participating in. I do live. I'm work-life integration. The first thing that I'll share with everyone is I love work. I think about work when I'm working, and I think about work when I'm not working, and it's okay. There's this piece that I stood strong in because so much of my life was my early years when I struggled actually with my drinking it was me masking the seed. I'm trying to please everyone, but that's a whole other story. And so I didn't come here to do what you want me to do. I came here to do what I like. And I like working a lot because it impacts lives. Now, I love my family dearly. And so for me, I think it's very important. This is just being super transparent. I have a wife who runs a really good business. She's a top 10, I think, in her marketplace. And I think for me, we all need people that are either hold us accountable in a partnership as that other pair of eyes. I think it's important for me to model that I do the work ethic. You can overcome anything. You can have anything that your heart desires if you work really hard. So that's the number one thing that I always want to demonstrate for whether friends, family, etc., people that I get to work with. But I think it's also important to let people know that whatever works for you works for you. And so I will go on sprints. I believe in going on sprints all in, and really, because I'm very much a momentum person. No holes. You look at my calendar, there's no holes in it. It's boom. And then it's picking my spots. And so every other part, if you look at my business life, is very structured. There is some fluidity, right? As you and I had, you graced me with some fluidity for us to get together here.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as this is exactly how many vacations we go on, this is exactly what I just don't live that way. Yeah. I live in a way of high level communication, one day at a time, of a wife and children that communicate closely. I think making time. So listen, I want to work all the time, and I want to have a blast with my family, skiing, hiking, mountains, out here on the farm. I want it all. The best way for me to do it is just, I go from no rules. Well, there's a rule. How am I feeling? Hey, and how are the people around me feeling? But I take care of me first, selfishly, because I can't serve them if I'm not taking care of myself. So my wife is truly a guide in that, and giving feedback, giving me the latitude to do what I absolutely love to do, while at the same time being that voice of reason to say, hey, listen, we need to come over here right now. Money is a vehicle for me to change lives, create freedom, and impact others, and have the experiences that I want to have with my wife, children, friends, and family. Mm-hmm. So I don't have this, it's like that morning routine. What's your morning routine? Get up, take a shower, have coffee, talk to my wife, go to work. I'm very feel based, but always, when I talk about from a feel, but everything's rooted in mission.
Well, what I hear you saying is you've got your priorities straight. It's you got to take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. In that morning, I get up, I have my coffee, I talk to my wife. That high level of communication, I mean, I think most people who have any level of failed marriage or failed relationships of any kind, it comes down to communication and expectations, and that she knows you've made her a priority by doing that.
It's interesting. We don't have rules. I mean, rules is a funny word to say. Tell people this. Time is discussed. I can't even count, as I think time is discussed every single day between her and I. It's like so much, not from a judgmental. It is from a, because my wife's just amazing. She was my friend for 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. She is a guide. She is a foundation. She's an amazing person, and I respect her so much. And I know that she has a mutual respect for me too. But time is everything. We talk about time all the time. If you talk about something all the time, you're going to optimize it. And that's what we strive.
So good. One last question as we wrap up. What's the most important thing that team leaders need to know in today's market?
I think you need to know, and please do not take this as, I think you need to know that your requirement to go into your deepest waters for your personal development, like you haven't ever before, is number one. Right now, people want two things. They've always wanted it, but I think that they need it more than anything. They need competency, but they need community. Community can only be built with emotional intelligence and emotional maturity, period. And so right now, go into the strategy. Listen, John, let me ask you this. With all this technology, if I say, John, I've always liked you. You're a good dude, man. And why don't you come there's a little ranch here next door to me. We're going to sell some real estate out here in Covington. So in between New Orleans and Louisiana. John, do you think if we knock 100 doors today and we call 100 people today and we look for FSBOs who expires, we don't do anything else, John, do you think we'd sell some real estate?
100%.
And if we did it tomorrow and tomorrow?
100% each day.
Right? I look at always keeping things super simple, man. Mm-hmm. I look at keeping things super simple. I think that we're overcomplicating things. I think overwhelm. I think if you take a look at the things that get in the way, there's fear, there is limiting beliefs, there is overwhelm, and there is lack of habits. When you look at the things that get in the way for people, and if you can just really simplify it, I think you're going to be more than just fine.
Leaders simplify the complex. So good, so good. That is great advice. I learned a lot today, Jon. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. On our way out, if people want to connect with you more, I'm going to your next event, which is in September, I believe, in Tahoe. Can you tell us how people can find out more about that?
Yeah,
you won't promote it yourself, but I want you to.
Go to cheplaktahoe.com, and here's what's even better about it. This I will promote. It is 2 days. cheplaktahoe.com. It is 2 days of Jon's, yours, you people listening here, your peers going across. It's not the Jon show. I speak maybe 20% of the time. My thing is bringing forward the brilliance of the people that are in the trenches, sharing what they're doing. And I added a third day that is optional. It's not an upsell part where you got to pay more to do it. And we tested it in Dallas and it was a hit. Day 3, the speaker subjects, we do roundtable. And so the speaker is sitting there, and then there's a half circle, and you're going to have a station for recruiting, a station for marketing, a station for lead gen, a station for operations. And that's day 3 where it's just, and we do musical roundtables. So anyways, it's a great event. And you can find me on Facebook, Jon Cheplak. That's it.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for taking the time out to join us on the show. Appreciate your contribution. You've taught me to always come from a place of contribution, and you're living that out. So thanks so much, Jon.
Appreciate you, brother.
And that's a wrap on another episode of the Mega Team Mastermind. I hope you found some nuggets of wisdom that you can use to leverage your real estate team to make an impact and to build a legacy. A huge thank you to our incredible guest and, of course, to our sponsor, megateammentor.com, where you can get a free detailed assessment of your real estate team's health, including a free customized scorecard that will quickly and objectively diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of your real estate team business. That's megateammentor.com for your free real estate team health assessment. If you enjoyed the show, I would consider it a personal favor if you would subscribe or leave us a review so that we can get this podcast out to others who want to make an impact and leave a legacy. I hope you'll tune in to our next episode for more leadership insights, strategies, and stories of success and failure. Until then, this is Jon Tiller, and as always, I'd like to speak an ancient blessing on you as we go. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.